Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Cumming, Georgia, it's time for FOCO Talks, brought to you by the Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back to FOCO Talks. We are glad that you're listening in. So we're talking today about an issue that it does not matter where you go. It does not matter what you do. We are all impacted by the workforce crisis out there. If you don't realize it, just think about the last time you went into a restaurant where you were not impacted by the limited number of servers. The last time you ran through fast food and you were not impacted by the limited number of workers in that restaurant. That's just one small part of it, but really there's not an industry in this country, and certainly not in this community, impacted by the really difficult challenge of finding talent and retaining talent. And it has been an issue that the Forsyth County Chamber has worked on with our members who have talked about this for a long time. And we really, during COVID, started an initiative called FOCO Works. And primarily at that time, we were just trying to connect people who were out of work temporarily with employers who needed people to drive deliveries or work at the hardware store, work at the grocery store, that sort of thing, just to get some money in the interim. And we discovered pretty quickly there was no one kind of filling that gap. So we just jumped in and got in that space and started doing some work. So today we have two guests, very important and no one more important in the workforce development space in Forsyth County than our two guests today. And we'll start with Dr. Valerie Lowe, who leads our CTAE instruction at Forsyth County Schools, and we'll talk about what CTAE means. And then we're also joined by the Director of Workforce Development with the Chamber. In partnership with Forsyth County Schools, this has been something we've worked on together, and to have this as a staff position with Amber Gaddis, who is our Director of Workforce Development and leads FOCO Works. And Amber, we're glad to have you join us as well today. So, Valerie, why don't I start with you? And first, if you would, just give us a little bit of background about yourself. I know you're almost a unicorn now. You're a native of Forsyth County, and so there's not many of you, and we're glad that you are in a leadership role at our school system. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how you got to be where you are, and what CTAE means and what it means to the business community as well.
Well, we're glad to be here today. My role really is in career, technical, and agriculture education. And so that stands for CTAE, and a lot of people don't know all the acronyms that we use in education. But really, my journey started when I was a high school student here at South Forsyth. I was in business education courses and FBLA, did an internship back then, or co-op that we called it. But really, my journey was rooted in community investment growing up, just being very involved in the community from my parents' standpoint, and just giving back was always a part of, kind of our journey for our family. And so I went to college at the University of Georgia, majored in business education, and came back. Took a little bit of time in family business while I was in grad school, and was able to enter the school system about 17 years ago into just the community space, and then led into transition to doing CTAE full time. So it's very important to me, just because I have seen the change and growth around the community all these years being here. Just seeing the investment, being raised in small business, just understanding how critical that workforce need is. And I think I kind of can connect the dots based on that, just seeing, the struggles that our businesses are going through, but also from a school system side, how quickly we need to be changing to be able to provide for our future community. So
outstanding. Well, and you mentioned your family, and really for those that may not know you, Valerie and her family have many generations in Forsyth County, but also many generations of community leaders And certainly your mom's is the educator of Forsyth County, and one of the very first people I got to meet when I moved to Forsyth County, and just really appreciate the legacy of giving that your family has had. So Amber Gaddis, we were able to bring her away from the Birmingham, Alabama, and to join us, and she has a great background in workforce development. So, Amber, if you would just tell us a little bit about kind of your background and who is Amber Gaddis?
I don't know if we have enough time to dive into all of that, but so my youngest memories are growing up. The first thing I can remember is sitting in a bagel shop while my mom and dad worked their second job to help provide for our family. And growing up, I always saw like my mom go to community college and wind up becoming a nurse, and my dad continue to take education courses and grow in his career. And I think I've been impacted by what workforce development is and aims to be my entire life. You know, my dad now owns a lawn business. My mom is a leader at our hospital, and it's really just been cool to watch their journey. And so it was kind of a natural fit for me when I realized what it actually was. And it wasn't just, you know, something that happened to my family, but something that impacts everybody. So I spent 15 years in Birmingham, Alabama, and spent 10 of that in working with students, high school and middle school students in youth ministry, but really spent a lot of time in the local schools helping students succeed, connect with guidance counselors. So when I moved out of the ministry space into nonprofit and chamber work, workforce development just was a natural progression, and so grateful to be here in Forsyth County and get to work with Dr. Lowe. CTAE just is incredible. I'm blown away by it every day, and so really love this work and really excited to continue talking about workforce development.
So if folks are listening to this and they may not be familiar with the workforce crisis, or they may just not be in an organization where they see it as readily as someone in HR might, for example. So you know, and really this question is for both of you. When, you know, the demographics of this country are changing, certainly the demographics of Georgia and Forsyth County are changing. Our unemployment rate has been 3% or below for, you know, all since COVID. And generally we view that low unemployment as a good thing. But of course we've kind of gone the other way, and now we've got employers chasing people to fill positions, and even investing in, you know, robotics and other things to be able to just get work done. So can y'all maybe tag team a bit on why this is happening, and then, you know, what the approach is from both an education standpoint but also a community standpoint on why should we all care? You know, why should it matter?
Well, I think for us at the school system, we're focused on the future workforce. And so that's kind of where we're thinking. And I know the kind of the puzzle that we fit together and our role in the community. But really, just even beyond COVID, we're always and have always had to prepare our programs and labs for just rapidly changing just because of technology. So whether it's a healthcare lab or a marketing lab or an engineering lab, we're always in a state of, you know, just updating and renovating. We're never at a point where we're idle with the way a program is. But for us, it's always been about just having students, equipping them with those skills where they can easily transfer between industries. So when you do get in a time that we've experienced this unprecedented, you know, the past 3 years or so, just that our students are resilient enough that we feel like we've equipped them with the skills while in high school, that they've been able to just learn new technologies, but also be adaptable. So really that grit, that the soft skills, the professionalism, all those skills that they can take with them anywhere is the big important piece. But also we have a lot of students who, very high number, who go directly to a 2 or 4 year college, but we realize that they're not always finishing those 2 or 4 year degrees. And so our work, and really the thing that you say keeps you up at night, is just that aftercare almost services and transition services for our students once they leave us. And so that's a gap that we want to focus more on. And really the community development piece is a big part of that, because then we can go and work with Amber, with the current workforce, and realize what supports are available to our students who may have graduated a year or two ago. So that's a big gap that we've got to work on. But really our role with our current group of students that are still in high school and middle school, just are we equipping them with that grit and the professionalism and the ability just to adapt when they get to the workforce? And then are we providing us, the chamber, all the community agencies, providing that support system for them after they leave us to be able to transition where these openings may be?
Absolutely. And I would also say on the current, we always talk about the future talent pipeline and the current talent pipeline. I think workforce development is so important because there are so many people preparing to exit the workforce, and not that it's an or people have forgotten, but I don't know that we've been as intentional in making sure that some of these high skill or in demand jobs have a pipeline of people come into those different careers. I know this is going to be shocking to everybody listening, but not everybody can be a YouTube sensation or an Instagram star or a TikToker. But if you go into some of the high schools, a lot of the kids like that's the goal. And so we're up against a battle of making sure that the jobs that currently exist, that there's awareness for them, that people have opportunities to join those careers, but also have opportunities to upskill, to go, hey, you know what? I might not want to do this anymore, and I might want to do something different. Well, how can we help people have access to better jobs, and how can we make sure that we're recruiting talent here that wants to stay here and be here and help boost our economy? So I would say workforce development, it kind of becomes one of those LinkedIn buzzwords. I know I always stop when I see it, but it really encompasses more than just the preparing aspect. Is how do we help people who are currently either looking for work or in jobs and need better jobs to have access to those?
Very good. So, we've been very, very fortunate and blessed with a school system that has had a real focus on community engagement and specifically business engagement, and that goes back many years. And of course, that's not true in every school system. In fact, we're probably on one end of a margin out there that does it and does it really well. So. And we're very, very grateful for that, and I think the community, of course, has reaped a lot of benefits from that. So, in thinking about that, so I guess, Dr. Lowe, from your perspective, how is CTAE? I mean, you touched on it just a moment ago, but how is it really bridging that gap, and how is it from just a really practical standpoint? I mean, for example, people may not be aware of the actual engagement of business people in the classroom and in curriculum development, and I know y'all put a ton of effort into bringing the community in so that it's real. It's real. It's not just a book. It's those things are real. So what does that process look like, and how do you engage the business community in that way so that ends up in the classroom?
So I would always say that we wouldn't have programs without our business community. We do from any type of design to curriculum instruction to just working on teacher professional development. Our business community plays an integral part in our program. So career and technical education, basically, especially at the high school level, there are middle school programs as well that are doing phenomenal things. But at the high school level, we ask students to more so, not major, but declare an area of focus. So that may be healthcare or culinary or marketing. And they spend 3 years, we hope, in a program. So that at the end of that program, they earn some type of industry credential. So a healthcare student finishes 3 years, they may earn their phlebotomy certification, or they may go and earn a CNA. Our hope is they stay with us our 4th year in our programs and do some type of internship. And so we've got probably, I guess, over 1,000 companies that host our student interns. An example for a phlebotomy student may be that they may go to Northside. We've got about 40 students this year, and we're increasing that number every day who are at Northside Hospital doing internships. So really, that's where students have that safe space to try out the occupation, see if they enjoy it. But at the same time, before they even get there, our labs, if you've ever been in our labs, replicate the work environment, right? So a healthcare lab or a culinary arts kitchen or a marketing lab, that's very important to us. And that's where that feedback from business and industry comes into place when we're looking at the design of the lab, the furniture, the equipment, what type of 3D printer makes sense, what type of mill makes sense. Those types of decisions we do not make without the business community being with us through advisory councils and their involvement there. businesses also are very good about looking at our standards, our curriculum, and helping kind of prioritize those. These are more important to us than others with our workforce.
Yeah.
We also bring in business and industry a whole lot into really the district level planning of where we want to head in the next, 3 to 5 to 10 years. And that really has guided our work, I would say, over the last decade, probably the most. From different schools we've opened to programs we've opened that we might not have had in the past. We just finished that process a couple of months ago here, and just the feedback. We actually were able to present on the community feedback last week at a state conference. Just the level of feedback and the rawness and the honesty of the feedback really helps us take a deep dive into where are our blind spots, where do we need to head, what pathways are we not offering that we need to be, what changes do we need to make. We talk a lot in our world of education about alignment, and that industry alignment piece is where really, you take the lens of, our community, healthcare, information technology, manufacturing. That's probably where we need to spend a lot more of our time in education, because there's so many job openings in our community. So just making sure that what we're offering aligns and makes sense to really the whole economic development region, not just here in the county. That's a big piece of it, but just the alignment piece is ongoing work for us. The strategic planning is a ongoing work for us, but just the excitement of where we're headed next, I think, is the best part of all of this.
And what do you find are the most successful programs?
We have a lot of student interest in healthcare and computer science, IT. Those programs are very popular. Cybersecurity, engineering, those programs are large. Just students have the ability to take a couple of pathways in high school if they choose to fill their schedule up, and really, like I said, just try it out, because it is so reflective of industry. So they kind of get a feel if they like it or not, and then hopefully we can put them into an internship. And again, it may be a disaster or it may be a great thing, but we've saved parents a lot of time. Hopefully, if college tuition time and money into college tuition, they figured it out. Just where they want to head next, or have a little bit more of grounding of where they want to head next.
I think what's really interesting too is I think it was last week or maybe a couple weeks prior, but Governor Kemp had said that 97% of students, and Dr. Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, but 97% of students who complete a CTAE program wind up graduating high school. So these programs aren't just giving them a career awareness, but they're impacting their entire education. And
our graduation rate in Forsyth County is 100%. So 100% of our students, and that's the same for, our fine arts programs too. Yeah. Kids are connected. That's usually why they want to go to school that day. They're very involved in our career tech student organizations. But yes, so 100% of our students that are enrolled, they're finishing, they're graduating, hopefully with some type of certification when they leave us. But that is a big deal, and that's a story that we need to tell. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. That is amazing. And actually, I did not realize that in Forsyth County, the CTE, that's 100%. That's incredible. So, and Amber, I don't know, this may be a better question for you, but so what do you all see as the most significant skill gaps affecting local business?
Yeah, I think Dr. Lowe touched on it a second ago, but healthcare, all the healthcare careers across the board, I think bringing in new talent is fantastic, but some of that, skilled talent or people who have been in the nursing profession for a while, definitely manufacturing, biopharmaceutical, those types of things. So our community is really, connected in the life science space, but as well as healthcare. And we have a lot of manufacturing happening here. And I think part of that too, and maybe speaking on the student side as well as the current workforce, is people have this perception that manufacturing is dark, dirty, dingy, gross.
Smokestacks.
Yeah. You come out covered in soot. And but some of the manufacturing that's happening in the county, people probably drive by every day and have no idea, but it's these big, bright, beautiful facilities, and there's really interesting jobs and really interesting work happening. And so I would say that, the skills gap are probably in those areas, but I think just changing the perception around different skilled trades and different opportunities here within the county isn't a problem. It's just a huge opportunity for students and our current workforce to be aware of.
I know. please go ahead.
I was going to say, add to that, I think that that's a challenge of something that we try to work on more, of marketing our programs so that they understand that they're not, these industries are very high tech, very clean, very, just getting students into the environment is something that I know Amber and the Chamber for a long time have helped us with, just getting industry tours lined up, but also the perception piece. That's real here. We're in a very affluent community. A lot of, you know what your mom and dad did for a living, and maybe, that's kind of that's really the only careers that you really know a whole lot about, maybe, or your family members. But just getting our parents to understand the wonderful opportunities that are here, encouraging our students to, that upskilling. So they may want to start with, a 2-year degree, or maybe they use that certification to help put them through college. And, here's some entry level positions that you could have right after high school, making very high wages, and be able to put yourself through school. So that's an important piece, but probably the biggest feedback that we get, and maybe even the biggest criticism, is that we don't offer enough in the skilled trades in the county, which, we offer a lot in the schools, but just specific to certain skilled trades that may be having the biggest. And so that's something that we're working on as a district, just looking across the country. It's the models that might work here. And so we're listening to that feedback and putting that into our next plan. But again, it is a lot about student engagement and just, that education piece for families to understand that there are a lot of careers in Forsyth County, and we want those students to be natives in 30 years, still talking about how great, the county is, and, and a place to live. So that's what we want, but we know that the community has changed too, and there's a lot of, transient, people coming in and out. So it's a balance.
Well, and the economy is changing so quickly about what employers expect in terms of education from a student. I tell people all the time, we had a next door neighbor who their son had been in a programming club, like boot camp after school, all from the time he was really 5, and when he graduated from high school, he had an offer for $120,000 a year position if he didn't go to college. And of course, I think how dangerous I would have been at 18 years old, but getting paid $125,000. But anyway, he chose to go on to college because he wanted to pursue something different. But think about how different a model that is from anything that really we've seen before. It's just incredible. So,
James, touching on that for just a second. Georgetown University, their Center for Education and Workforce, they put out a study fairly recently. Brandy Canizaro with CTAE actually shared it with me, but what it said was that in 10 years, 72% of jobs will require some kind of post-high school education. But we think, okay, automatically, like, go do your 4 years and you're done. But really what that study said was that means, going after your associates or skilled trade certifications or boot camps or different things. And so for us to be in a community that already values that and has so many of those programs already happening is really exciting. Agreed.
All right, let's jump just a little bit. Just thinking about my neighbor in that example, he literally had, they had their son in a, coding ninja program, one of those programs, and literally at the age of 5, which I see that, and of course, I'm older, so I'm looking at that going, what is happening here? But so in your view, and in this, particularly from the school system standpoint, how early should that career development and be thinking about that? How early should that begin?
Well, we have begun probably in the past several months really looking into elementary school, because we've got a lot of wonderful middle school programs. Middle school allows students really to rotate 9 weeks, so they kind of get a little feel of a whole lot of things at the middle school: business, computer science, marketing, healthcare, engineering. So they rotate around. But looking at the elementary school, the Georgia Department of Education is releasing standards for middle school CTAE, which is super exciting. So we've been able to work probably the past 6 or 8 months with our middle school or our elementary school principals on identifying how we could use a existing STEM special. So they may be doing something related to robotics or ag. How can we use that to broaden to all the different, there's 17 career clusters in Georgia that all these different pathways that we offer fit under. So for an elementary school student, how can they get a little bit of healthcare and a little bit of AV and a little bit of computer science while they're in grades K through 5. And so we've been able to work with about half of our elementary schools for next year moving into that space. And that seems really early, but if you look at the standards, it's very much going back to what I mentioned earlier, just the soft skills, the professionalism, being able to communicate, being able to present in front of my peers, that eye contact, all of those different things, that can't start early enough, in my opinion. That's just, manners in a lot of ways that we may have been raised with, just how to work with adults or people that are different from you, or in groups versus individuals. So all those different things, and then allowing us to tie in, maybe a healthcare standard to a science course that they're taking in elementary school, or where do these standards fit into their academic standards? So we're excited about that. And again, it's more about just career awareness. What are jobs out there? What does this, and you can think about, touch a truck and some of the earlier memories that our students may have, just career days, how to tie that into what the great work that our elementary schools are already doing. So we're excited about that, getting that rolled out and working with a group of teachers on creating that space. But also just middle school, again, that free space to just kind of, enjoy, all these different rotations that they may have, so that hopefully by high school, and we're not going to make them declare a major or, they can't change their mind, but hopefully by high school, they've got a little bit more of inclination. They've done a lot of interest and aptitude surveys by then that are part of Georgia's Bridge Bill. That, maybe my interest is more in healthcare and marketing, and so I'm going to try those. But they really do, hopefully, have an idea by high school that, just, being able to try. We probably have about 60 to 70% of any of our high school students, other than Alliance. Alliance is 100%, but students involved in career tech. So not every student in the building is going to take a career tech course. So we're, 60 to 70%, maybe the other high schools. But again, going back to that grad rate, we know that if they're engaged in something like that or fine arts, we've got to get them involved so that we don't lose them, so that interest has got to be there. So again, we're going to move into the elementary school space. There's a lot of work already happening around, STEM specials. And so we hope to just be able to, offer some, just some framework around that so that it ties into our middle school programs, but just allowing that opportunity, to explore those 17 career clusters a little bit earlier next year.
Very good. Well, and that ties nicely into really the next question for you guys, and it's really for both of you. But what are the best ways to engage kids in career development and thinking about their future careers? And of course, thinking, many of the audience members of this podcast are going to be business people, and how can they get involved with that? What can they be doing? What role could they play in helping to do that?
I think for us, we've tried over the years to make it easier, thanks to the guidance of you all, of how to partner with our business community. So, just having clear marketing materials, having a place where they can go to onboard, telling us exactly how they want to partner with us, but really how to get our kids thinking about the future. 9 times out of 10, it's getting somebody like you or somebody like Amber or somebody from the hospital or either into the classroom to spark something in them, or getting those kids, they don't really know why they're getting on a bus to go on an industry tour, but that bus tour, really, they saw something there. They saw something that they would be interested in doing or learning more about. But it doesn't matter if it's, the women's leadership event that the chamber held years ago. I can think of just specific examples where our students, we just saw changes in them after they've had these experiences, whether it's in person in a classroom, maybe a chef coming in to guest lecture about something, or that industry tour that we did, down at Siemens or Hansgrohe. They saw something there that sparked their interest to follow up after the fact. So our teachers do amazing jobs, but it's those teachers that are connecting their classroom to the community that are just, blowing the waters out just for students to have that real world experience, class projects, trying to make sure our class projects and the activities are about local businesses really helps too, because kids identify with the names of the companies, or having companies bring in a case study that makes sense. So there's a lot of ways for businesses to partner, but 9 times out of 10, that interaction, or that, them getting to see something, really is the way that our students really start thinking about what is possible for them.
For sure. And I would say to anybody listening to this, in the business community, if you go, I'd love for our organization to be involved, but like, we don't have that many people, or it's all very time consuming. I would just say Dr. Lowe and the CTA team have made it so easy to be involved. So I would say don't underestimate what an hour can do to impact the students, decision or life choices, or where they think they're going to be headed. And so, of course, we would love for, every business in Forsyth County to be really involved in CTA programming. But if there's anybody listening who goes, hey, I might want to do something, there's so many programs and so many ways to be involved. And so I would just say, come on, and we'll find a spot for you. But it takes everybody, there's careers. I went to college for nursing originally. And I did one rotation on a nursing floor, taking care of students. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the smells, like I could never do this. And I remember walking out and telling my teacher, like, thank you, but no thank you, And so for students to have opportunities to experience things, or to talk to somebody in that profession way ahead of time is, like Dr. Lewis said, going to save thousands of dollars, but it's so valuable to go, oh no, I know somebody who did that. So jump in and get involved.
And we try to create opportunities with you all and with our advisory boards where students can have that interaction with adults. That's very important to them, and that's something that they ask us for, to be able to present to adults or just interact. So students, list some things that, are easy to plug into. To Amber's point, just our advisory boards meet twice a year. That's not a big ask for an hour. We do have companies that host interns, and just one intern a year. And that hopefully is not, a huge ask just to try an intern out. We have companies that just let me call them when I have a question about their industry, because we're not experts of 52 different pathways that we offer. We have ways for teachers to spend a day in industry in an externship. So a company that would be willing to have an adult in their building all day, just learning what you all do, so that they can bring that back into a classroom. We have industry tours. So would you let, a group of, 10 or 15 kids come in your door just to show them your business and just talk to them about what you do? Our mock interviews bring thousands of volunteers into our school buildings each year. Again, just that interest. A lot of students have been hired through that process, just making that introduction to adults. So there's a ton of ways to easily plug in.
Would also, encourage folks to think, just because you're in your business every day doesn't mean that everybody has any clue what you're doing and how interesting people find business, And in fact, I was having this conversation a few days ago about how as kids and this certainly dates me, but one of our favorite segments of Mr. Rogers was he would go to some company, and all he did was, it was sort of like how it's made for Mr. Rogers. He would do a walkthrough, and I still remember those things.
I spent a couple of weeks ago. I spent all day at the jail. For my externship to learn from Major Cash and
voluntarily though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's important, but just to learn what that operation looks like, because I've done a lot. Been in the hospital, ins and outs, but I'd never seen that. And we've got so many students who want to go directly to work in jail operations or in criminal justice or with the sheriff's office. So that was good. And we encourage our teachers to spend at least one day in industry each year, just because that is so important. A lot of our teachers, they were teacher trained. Business education, marketing education, engineering. I mean, they've not been in industry. They came straight out of a program. Now, that's changing rapidly with a lot of those programs not rebounding from COVID. So we're bringing a lot of teachers in non-traditionally through our teacher academy, which has been phenomenal. But just that time in industry is very important when you're making decisions like we would be on what curriculum we need to be offering around criminal justice, or, what does the courtroom need to look like that we're building inside of a new school. So all of those things are important, but if we're not in the work and connected to the business community, we're not going to be making good decisions about our future for our students.
Very good. So we're coming down to the end of time here, so I really kind of want to head in kind of that last direction of the future. So, I know from the chamber standpoint, our focus is, the core of our business is economic development, and we define that really as just creating prosperity. Working with business to create prosperity in the community, and there's a lot of paths to that. And one of the things that really sets us apart is our talent pool and our community and our workforce. And the better that we are at that, as long as we're better than another community, that means that that's going to give us a little bit of a competitive advantage. So, when you think about the long term, the next 10, 15 years in workforce development, CTAE, what does that look like to you? I mean, and I know I'm because we just spent a lot of time talking about how we can't even anticipate some of the industries that are going to exist just look at AI. I mean, that was just sort of a science fiction dream not all that long ago. So, but looking ahead, like where do you see it heading? What do you see the work looking like, and how to keep addressing both the needs of the students and industry?
I think on the school system side, we do a really good job, thanks to the support of our Board of Education and Superintendent, of building spaces that can be transferable to other tenets of healthcare or marketing or AI or whatever it is. We added fintech and cybersecurity. I can name programs that we were able to add pretty rapidly because we built the lab space to accommodate that, and we were able to move on that. For us, I mean, we don't have any new schools that we're currently in development working on, but we have a good system in place where students are able to attend programs out of district, or they can choose to apply to Alliance Academy, which is our wall-to-wall CTAE school. But we want students to have the accessibility. So if a program is not offered in their particular zone school, that they have the ability to go to another school and take that program. So we're working on long-term goals now, again, around programs where we feel like we may be missing the mark, where students aren't is easily able to plug in and take a particular pathway, and maybe expanding some options to higher level advanced programming around manufacturing or healthcare, those skilled trade areas that I mentioned. So that's going to be a big part of hopefully our next phase as a school district to make some programs a little bit more easily accessible for students to pop into, and not forgo some of maybe the athletics that they're involved in, or to not move traditionally to a new school. But also, again, just making sure that we're taking a real visible look each year at what we're currently offering. What is the industry market telling us is going to be the future of our county, and are we ready for that? Are we preparing students in those industries? And just, just looking at our numbers, how many kids are finishing those pathways, how many are earning those certifications, and, whether or not they use them immediately after college, if they're going on to a four-year school or not. What we say is, the ability for them to plug in and then maybe upskill as they're going through college. That's a great job compared to what they would have if they had nothing and working just a normal part-time job in college. This would give them the ability really to hopefully have a higher paying job while they're putting themselves through post-secondary. So, that's what we look at. Again, that alignment piece. How do we get better? Just not staying where we are, but where are we headed next? So that's what we're working on.
Beautiful.
For sure. I think, looking 10 to 15 years down the road, I think the things that are happening now are just continuing to happen on an advanced scale. What does it look like to continue to partner really well with the technical college system for students going to four-year university? How do we, like Dr. Lewis said, how do we continue to track those students? How do we measure the data to make sure the programs and the things that we're putting time and energy to on the front end while they're in K through 12 education are helping them decide not only where to go, but helping them land, high earning jobs? But I think also, I think workforce development kind of became like this, trendy, sexy, like LinkedIn word. But I think where we have to go from there is just curiosity of, hey, if things like AI and robotics and all these things are coming down the pipeline, we can't just go, no, like that's Back to the Future. Like that's not possible, but instead embrace it and go, okay, well then how do we impact, the workforce? How do we make change? If all these people are going to need upskilling by 2034, what kind of upskilling programs can we offer? And so letting our curiosity lead us into developing programs and developing things that allow people to be successful. And so I think the work of workforce development has just begun. And I'm really excited to see, in 10 years, what it would look like to have, continue to have business partners and champions at the table to help us impact students and our current workforce to really be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you both. And thank you both for what you do. I mean, really, it's one of those things that it's so critical and so, just like you were talking about driving by industries that are doing some amazing things and people have no idea. Same thing. We thank you for your work, and because it does make a huge difference and certainly makes us far more competitive on an economic standpoint and as a community. So appreciate both of you and the great work you're doing. Thank you all for joining us for another FOCO Talks, and tune in next month. We'll be back.